Oh man. Nice.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So today on our live on this Monday, Amanda and I are going to talk about sleep and how it can affect so much stuff, which people underlook. I remember going through grad school. I don't know if I really slept, but and we used to make the joke saying sleep is for the weak. And it's not really true. Like, we actually do need to really sleep. And there's so many cool studies about sleep and little things that you don't think about. And we're going to
Yeah.
discuss both nutritional aspects of it as well as performance and workout aspects about sleep.
Yeah.
So it's kind of really cool when you break it down, like how much sleep you actually need. So you hear this age old saying, like 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day is ideal. If we get that, great. A lot of people don't get that.
I was gonna
you
say,
know
how many people do you know that actually get that?
No, I mean, I go to bed at like 9:30, 10, and I don't really get that. I think I get 7 or
Yeah.
maybe 6, It's hard. So there are ways to like increase your sleep debt. It really depends on what you're going for and how your life is structured and stuff. So it really, really is tough to get, that 8 hours of sleep in. If you have kids, if you have a family, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
if you have just
Sometimes it's tough
life.
to get the timing of it in, but you can
Yeah.
also improve the quality of it, which we can
Yeah.
talk about.
That's a huge factor too. I don't think people understand that is you can sleep from, let's say, 5 p.m. to 5 the next morning, 12 hours of sleep. But like, was it good sleep? Were you tossing
hmm
and turning? Was it, you know what I mean? Like, that's a whole
hmm
factor in itself. We need to
Are you
know,
still
like,
waking up tired? Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, like we said, is like you want 7 to 8 hours of sleep if you can get it.
hmm
But there is a little nuance to that as well because you can get more. 10 hours of sleep is optimal from recent studies for athletes, but
hmm
usually those athletes are being paid to do their sport, so they can. It's okay for them to go to bed at 7
It's a
p.m.
little bit easier for them to
Yeah.
get sleep, but
Um,
if you are the average person and you get the chance to, by all means.
yes.
Another quick thing before we even dive into this, I think a common misconception is people think they can catch up on sleep,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no such thing. Your
Yes.
body resets, right? Like we need a
Yep.
certain amount for every day that we're awake. We need to
Yeah.
balance that out. And there's really no such thing as actually catching up on it. So it
Yes.
definitely is about getting into a better routine,
Mm-hmm.
prioritizing it, so
Yep.
set boundaries around it. Because here's the thing: I know we're talking about how it can be tough to get 7, 8 hours of sleep, but I also know that a lot of people tend to be up on their phones late at night, and there are ways that we can even increase our sleep by half hour if we
Yeah.
can prioritize it and put it first. I
Yeah.
think when we recognize too how it impacts us the next day and how it
Yeah.
impacts productivity the next day,
Yep.
we're likely to prioritize it more.
Yeah. No one
Um,
likes feeling sleepy, that's for sure.
yeah, so I want to be careful when I say that you can't get more than
Yeah.
7 or 8 hours, or you can't get more than 6 hours type of thing, because I think there always is some wiggle room.
Oh yeah,
Um,
of course.
yeah,
And that's where it's difficult. And to base off what you said, you can't really catch up on sleep, and it's true. You can't catch up on sleep. Like if you're sleep deprived for 4 hours, like you sleep 4 hours a day for the last 4 days, and you're like, you know what? It's Thursday. I have nothing to do on Friday. I'm going to sleep from 6 p.m. till 12 p.m. the next day. That sleep, that increase, that sleep debt increase, you guess you could say, doesn't affect those
right.
4 days. It takes
Yeah.
at least it takes you at least, and like a recent article I read was, it takes you at least 3 weeks to actually get back onto a normal, like kind of recount and get back onto a normal sleep schedule.
hmm
The other factor is, though, if you can't, and not many people can do this either, if you do have, like, let's say you get 7 hours or 6 hours of sleep one night, if you nap in the morning before like the late afternoon, like 3, 4, 5 o'clock, in that same 24-hour period, it technically can help you with,
hmm
and this is a performance thing, it can help you with performance.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
that's
think
allowed.
too that if someone, just your average person, because I'm assuming you're talking about athletes, right?
Yeah, that's your average person usually doesn't need to do that or gets to do that. Let's be honest.
So if I actually, yeah, I know, but I agree with you in the fact that it can help performance, but even
Yeah.
the average individual for daily tasks, because if
Mm-hmm.
I have someone that sleeps poorly and we know cortisol is all out of whack, a
Yeah.
15-minute nap, go for it. If you have the time
Yeah.
to do it, shut your eyes, because it'll probably make a huge difference for the next couple hours.
Oh, totally. And that's where I think, like, even, and that's where, like, you don't have to be in, it's, a nap doesn't have to be long. It should be 30 minutes max. You know, so like if you got 15 minutes, you're
Right.
sitting at your
We're
desk
talking
or
about very specific timing here, not a
yeah,
2 hour nap that's going to
yeah.
offset sleep later on and completely, you're going to wake up like you just came from Mars, but
Yeah, so I got hit by a
nice
truck or
little.
whatever. You're like, whoa,
Yeah.
what happened to me? But yes, if you get that time to fit in a little nap here and there, that's a great thing to do because yes, life gets in the way, like we're saying, things happen, you know, sometimes you got something to get done for work and you just can't get your sleep in. And it sucks. It really does because of, and we're going to go into like the ramifications of the
Right.
negative things of sleep when it comes to nutrition and performance and just overall health. So we'll start on what we kind of talked about a few minutes ago, Amanda,
Yeah.
was I read recently that when you're sleep deprived, your glycogen stores decrease. Now, and Amanda can come from the nutritional aspect of that, but your glycogen stores are where you're pulling a lot of your power and your performance from, whether you're just an average person working out or whatever it is. That's where you're kind of pulling it from.
Right. So glycogen stores, just to clarify for people that might not know, it's how you store your sugar. So when you need it, when you need that energy, it will be released. There'll be hormones that say, hey, we need this right now. It's released in the bloodstream. Happens during exercise, when, prolonged. So why? So what he's saying is that our stores actually decrease when we're sleep deprived. Now, this is because when we're sleep deprived, we are stressed, right? It's a stressor on the body. Our body needs balance. So we release higher levels of cortisol. Now, cortisol will actually trigger the liver to release blood glucose, glycogen stores.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is when this is prolonged, we see high blood sugar for long periods of time, and this can lead to things like diabetes. So there are studies that are done. I actually just pulled this up before. Just 4 to 5 nights of bad sleep can make someone look pre-diabetic from a blood sugar standpoint.
Which is wild to think about.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, it's only a few nights, you know? Like, what if you
Yeah.
have a bad week? What if
You're
you're
on
busy at work?
vacation.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
And I mean, I think in terms of like, you can feel that too, right? When you
Yeah.
don't sleep, you're a little more irritable.
Yes.
You're having crashes throughout the day, all signs of irregular blood sugar and like cortisol and blood sugar. Cortisol has a massive impact on that.
Yeah. And that's what I think a lot, we underlook that. We're like, oh, we'll just survive. Like, I mean, I've said it multiple times. I'm fine on 4 hours. I could do it on 4 hours. And then, but
we're so used to just surviving.
Yeah, exactly. Not thriving.
And how
and that's what
long
we
are you
should
just
do.
going to survive for until it catches up to you?
Yeah. And it's true. You can only go for so long. And to the same thing concept with you said, only a few days of sleep deprivation. Same with pain too, which is wild to think about. They show how, because it goes off of mood and irritability, all those different things, but you will also, with like up to, I think it said 5 days of like limited sleep, about 4 hours, your pain sensitivity increases a lot. So that pretty much means that how the level you feel your pain levels, the level you feel pain at is a lot quicker than if you get enough sleep. So like you can see how nutritionally wise, your blood sugar can be high, you're feeling a little bit more pain. Like you can see how this whole thing of just surviving can really take this horrible effect on your body. And you're just
Definitely.
like,
yeah. And then on top of that, you think about it from a blood sugar standpoint. So say someone has a regular blood sugar to begin with and they're trying to lose weight.
Yeah.
When you lack sleep, your hunger hormones, ghrelin, actually increases. So you're more likely to crave more food and you're not going to feel as full as you normally would off of, a certain amount of food. So that's why you tend to see a lot of carb cravings in people that don't sleep well, because they are looking for quick energy. Their body's tired and it needs some sort of energy to carry out whatever it is they're trying to do.
Yeah. And that's, I'm sure you ask it when you're working with a client, is like, how's your sleep schedule? And I ask it all the time as well. And a lot of times I just get the answer like, I just don't sleep. And I used to say all the time, I just don't sleep well. I just don't sleep. But the truth is, like, there's ways to help, like you were saying earlier. We can help ourselves. We may not be good sleepers, we'll say, but we can help ourselves and find a way to prioritize it as best we can. And there's little fixes you can make here and there. Like, I'm sure there's some foods to avoid or some things to avoid to actually help improve your sleep.
It's funny because I I don't normally get people that tell me they don't sleep well,
Oh,
because I think they know that I want to hear that they sleep well. But then
true.
when we actually look, because I'll say, okay, let's track the hours, let's track how you feel, et cetera, et cetera. And then we actually look at it, we're like, okay, something's off with the quality here, or the hours are not as much as like they thought they were.
Yeah.
So, sometimes I think, again, it might be because people think that that's what I want to hear, but I also think that we may think we sleep better than we do. I know before I got this Aura ring, I
Yeah.
thought that I was sleeping well. And then I got it, and I realized that I wasn't sleeping as well as I thought I was, and I made some minor changes around bedtime. It's amazing what putting your phone away and getting
Mm-hmm.
that blue light out of your face will do for your
Yeah.
REM sleep.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. In one night, like for some reason, my deep sleep was great, my REM sleep was not.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, you know what? I've been on my phone. I've been working a little bit later. Let me just put it away a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Half hour earlier, I read instead. My REM sleep was great the next day.
That's amazing.
So, it's little things like that I
Yeah.
don't think we realize. But there are things, so we can get into, how do we optimize sleep
Mm-hmm.
and what does that look like? So if you are, it kind of depends. Like some people have trouble falling asleep.
Yeah.
Some people have trouble staying asleep during the night. A lot of it comes back to blood sugar regulation.
Okay.
So your blood sugar in labs may be fine. You're like, oh, I'm in range, no big deal. Okay, fine. But how do your meals look? So like if
I think your sound went out. Still can't hear you. There we
now,
go. Yeah.
you know what? As someone had called me as we were
Oh,
talking,
I was like,
why.
you had this good thing going, and I'm like, is it me? So,
Just kidding. You don't get to hear the rest of it.
your sound went out with the part where how are you regulating your blood sugar at night, like while you're sleeping?
Right. So regulating blood sugar, it's going to happen throughout the day first, right? So like making sure that you're eating protein, fiber, and good fatty acids with all of your carbs. Carbs are great. They're not bad, but they need to be paired with something unless they're around working out or in between your workouts, something specifically for performance. I usually recommend that all of them are paired with a meal, like something protein, fiber, fatty acids, because, we can see that glucose response on the glycemic index, and we want to try to avoid any big crashes in that and any irregularities there. So I would say that that's a big one, making sure that you're eating enough, because that's also going to be a stressor, right? That's also going to impact cortisol. Anything that impacts cortisol is going to impact sleep, because we have this thing, we have our cortisol throughout the day. It should, increase in the morning, and then as the day goes on, it should decrease. And I was thinking I could actually show that Dutch test if you want. I just turned my phone around here to just show people what this looks like, because I think it's helpful to have the visual of what cortisol pattern should look like. So,
and I think a lot of us we overlook cortisol, not understanding really what it is, and it's a stress hormone. That's really what it is for people that don't know what cortisol is.
Yes, it's a hormone released in response to stress. So if I'm looking at my Dutch test here, this is a cortisol map or a cortisol pattern. And you can see this is crazy, right? My cortisol was super, super high, and that's why I was having all of the issues that I did. But if we look in here, this is where cortisol should be throughout the day. We want it in between these ranges. And we're hitting peak values, so it should wake us up. It should rise in the morning. That's what wakes us up. And then we should hit peak values around like mid-morning, maybe 12 p.m. And then as the day goes on, it slowly decreases. What tends to happen is people will decrease below this amount. We see afternoon crashes a lot. Big one for a lot of people. I actually have found a lot of success with just adding in, a good lunch and maybe a snack, because most people aren't eating enough throughout the day. And then when we see this crash here, so that can help a lot. And then if we, as the day goes on, we see it come up here. And now here we get this wired and tired feeling where people are like, I have been exhausted all day. I took a nap today because I was so tired, but now I can't sleep. And here's why, right? Cortisol is still high. And what we don't recognize is that it will, it's inversely related to melatonin. So as cortisol comes down, melatonin kicks in. And that's what helps us sleep. So if that's not happening, we could be exhausted, but our body's having a lot of trouble coming down from this cortisol that,
Hmm.
we're getting screwed here. We're having trouble falling asleep even though we're exhausted.
Yeah, which sucks because that's a terrible feeling, to be honest. You're like, I want to go to bed, but you can't go to bed.
Right.
And I'm
This
sure
was
a lot of people, and that's yours, right? That's your actual Dutch
Yeah,
test.
so
Nice.
this is my map from last February, so almost a year ago.
Yeah,
I was teaching 5 a.m. boot camp classes. I was going to bed fairly early, but I would be waking up at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning due to blood sugar irregularities. And my
yeah.
hormones were all out of whack too, right?
Yep.
If we scrolled up here, we would see that they were all very low, so that had a major impact. But that's why it was so high upon waking, and then I would
Hmm.
have these crashes. Makes sense, because as soon as I taught my 5 a.m. classes and had my clients, I
Yeah.
got home and all I wanted to do was sleep around 12 o'clock, take a
Yep.
nap, and then I'd try to get through the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then here I would take some more clients and possibly teach another class, so of
Yep.
course it would bump up. So that's, all the more reason to like find a schedule
Hmm.
that works for you. Thankfully enough, I was able to restructure my days. I had
Yeah.
that freedom. It did take some time and it was scary at first. I was like, whoa, I can't do that. There's no way.
Yeah.
But as soon as I saw this and I recognized how much it was really playing into my
Yeah.
body and my health,
Yep.
I was like, I'm going to find a way.
Yeah. So Anthony, do you end up, I know what he's talking about. Do you end up eating really late at night? If you can answer that, just let us know, because we're gonna go into that next, of how that can affect how well you sleep, and if that's gonna affect your cortisol. To get those meals in, because he's a bodybuilder and he's trying to put on some size.
Yeah. I've had issues with this too when I've been at my highest calories trying to get them in. I'll be eating closer to bed at night.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And does that will that affect will it affect your hormone levels?
So
Yeah, so
you're
2 meals after
digesting
9,
food.
which is kind of late, but that's okay.
Say again.
He said 2 meals after 9. So that's kind of a good amount of meals to have after 9. So like if you are post, and yeah, because you train late too. So if you are eating closer to bed, is there something to, like we said, does that affect your cortisol levels? Is there something we should actually, like, certain foods that can maybe help us if we have to get those calories in?
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say?
I think it depends. I don't think it's necessarily bad to eat at night. I think that there's been so many misconceptions around that.
Yeah.
If you eat at night, you're going to gain weight, et cetera, et cetera. It's not really the case. It's just how it impacts your sleep. And how it impacts like hormone levels and things like that. I would say, if you feel like you're sleeping fine and you're getting good quality sleep, there's not too much to worry about.
Yeah.
When it comes to someone that definitely has, irregular blood sugar, I try to say, 2 to 3 hours before bed, why don't we stop, see if that helps you increase the quality of your sleep. Exactly.
Yeah.
I would say when you are eating at night, sticking to some proteins and fats versus like carbs, that can be helpful. But yeah, I think it varies case by case. I don't want to say like one or extreme or the other.
Yeah.
It definitely always, it comes down to the individual.
Yeah, which makes sense. Definitely does. Now, you want to stick to proteins and fats, because I'm trying to just put it all together. We're talking about all the blood sugar regulations and what can wake people up at night. So if you're eating a lot of carbs at night, like sugary sweets or something like that some people tend to do,
that will absolutely have a major impact.
Yeah.
Do not engage in, a lot of snacking before bed.
Yeah.
Have a meal, have something substantial, not massive. I would say keep it small, right? Because you don't want to be digesting a ton, but have like a balanced plate. Have your proteins, fiber, fats, sort of thing, not just snacky carbs.
Yeah, not just like chips and empty calories, we could say, if that's a word that we can use. Just so you can worry about, your regulation a little bit more, because we want to make sure we're regulated as much as possible to help sleep.
Right, because your sleep's if you're bodybuilding, your sleep will impact your performance the next day when you're training.
Of course.
And
that's a huge factor. So I think a lot of people we have to find that sweet balance, is really, if we want to break it down to anything, how do we balance everything we need to do? Because there's only so many hours in the day to make sure that we sleep enough. But like you said, when you start feeling good, it's almost like anything. When you start taking your health a little bit more seriously and feeling good, you didn't realize how good you can feel. So you kind of prioritize a little bit more. So like Amanda said, she something we're gonna just go over some to like round it all up. We're gonna go over some tips to help improve your sleep, little things you can make changes. And Amanda touched on one already with 30 minutes she puts her phone away before bed. That's a huge thing. There's studies all about the blue light before bed, things like that, where
Yeah,
you can
I know
find them
blue
out all
light
the
gets a
time.
lot of the attention, but
Yeah.
there's been more studies done on just the light itself and the brightness of the light
Hmm. Yeah.
and
Makes
how,
sense.
because
It
I mean,
stimulates you.
there's some not there's some, what am I trying to say? There's some different information now around
Yeah.
like blue light glasses and
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
or not
Yeah.
they truly helpful,
Hmm.
or if we can just, I think that your best bet is at least a half hour before bed. That's
Yeah.
not much.
No.
Like you can do that. I promise you.
Yeah.
You can put away your TV and your phone and all of those things a half hour before you go to bed and
Yep.
find something like, that you enjoy, something calming during that time that you enjoy
Hmm.
doing.
Yeah.
I've had coloring work for people. I've had
Yes.
reading works for many.
Hmm.
Even putting on like an audiobook or some
Yep.
music without
Yeah.
actually looking at the device, turning it down.
Oh.
If you're going to talk to someone at night, use the phone.
Yeah.
Put the brightness down. You don't need to text them. You can actually call them,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and you can have a conversation with someone. Because I know that that's something that many people like to do at night as well,
Yeah.
is just catch up with people and whatnot, but
Yeah.
obviously make sure you're not having super stressful
Yes.
conversations.
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
But there's many different ways that you can decrease the amount of light that you're exposed to before you go to
Yeah.
bed.
And that's another one too. She said it already. TV. Be careful with the TV. A lot of people have TVs in their room now.
Mhm.
I didn't have one for so long, and then I eventually put one in during COVID because I was spending more just time in my bedroom anyway. But like, a lot of people are like, oh, just remember that if you have a TV in your room and you fall asleep with the sleep timer on, and you're like, well, I get 8 hours of sleep, but your sleep timer is on for 2 hours, and you're in theory you're probably falling asleep, but you're not really sleeping through because the sound of the TV, the light of the TV is not
Right.
allowing you to access deeper things. So
Right.
it's probably in your best interest to either make the sleep timer shorter and account for that extra 30 minutes in your sleep day, or turn it off and try and find, like she said, an audiobook, a white noise machine. Some people use like apps like to help them, like meditation apps, things like that can help just not staring at the screen because that's what's going
Yeah.
to stimulate you.
Yeah. And just another note here too, because I'm not saying that it's terrible all the time to be like watching something before bed, because sometimes when people are super wound up about something
Yes.
stressful,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
like once in a while, it's okay to like watch a funny show or something
Yeah.
that's going to relax you. Just
Yeah.
be careful with it, right? You don't want to be relying on that every night. I would challenge you to, for the majority of the time, be able to put the light away at least a half hour before.
Yeah. And even if you get a little bit more, like 30 minutes a day is another factor you can do. Just if your bedtime's 10, try 9:30. If your bedtime's 11:30, try 11. Just that little bit a day can make that huge difference over time. And like I said, like we talked about originally, you want to make sure that you're getting anywhere from 7 to 8 hours. But
Right.
realistically, do what you can to get as much sleep as possible.
Right.
Well, you have to
Yeah.
prioritize it. Like, are you sitting up at night, just staying up just to stay up? Like, have you scrolled on Instagram for the last X amount of hours and you're like, why am I even awake? Because we've all done it, but it's like, wait a second, do I need to do that? Those are
Right.
little questions you can ask yourself to help yourself sleep better, because you'll be surprised how much in overall health you'll feel better if you sleep better.
Yeah,
You'll
you just
perform
brought up
better.
another good point too about scrolling, because someone might say, "Oh, I have the same argument with TikTok. It's a good
Yeah.
feed. Like I don't follow anyone that's not
Yeah.
conducive to my health or well-being, etc."
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're still scrolling
Mhm.
at a very fast rate. So I would
Yeah.
say that if you're stuck on that, find a relaxing show or
Yeah.
something that's like just one thing to concentrate on, because you're still
Yeah.
scrolling and having to take in all of this information.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
honestly, I don't really care if it's good stuff or not. Like,
Yeah.
put it at another time in the day.
Yeah. If you can. And that's what it is. It's like, and like, I think a lot of what we're saying, it comes down to, and a lot of what we always say is, there's better decisions depending on time. Like Amanda just said, instead of scrolling, watch a TV show. Now, watching a TV show may not be the best option, but it's better than scrolling. Just like getting 15 minutes more sleep is not the answer, but it's better than getting 15 minutes of less sleep.
Absolutely. It's like
You
exercise.
know?
15
Yes,
minutes is way better than nothing.
exactly. So just a
And
little bit more sleep is going to do so much more for you. And that's all you need is just work on that little bit more. And like Amanda said, she thought she was sleeping well, but she didn't know she was not really sleeping that great. And you
mhm.
will know though. You'll notice that, like she said, blood sugar wise, you'll notice. And if you go back to her Dutch chart, she just like she's fine in the morning, then she just dips rapidly, and you'll notice that. You'll feel like that midday crash. You're
Yeah,
like,
you don't need a cortisol map to figure this out. It's not
yeah,
rocket science. You can go by how you feel, but you have to listen to yourself because people tend to
exactly.
just push past that. And
Yes, and that's
that's what I was kind of like. So that's why
yeah,
something like a very expensive test helped me figure out what
yeah,
you can save your money if you listen to your body.
and
So
that's a lot of things.
I think that you brought up another good point there too, saying, getting 15 minutes more. Hey, can I go to bed 15 minutes earlier?
Hmm.
Get up 15 minutes earlier as well,
Yeah.
because that's going to help you go to bed 15 minutes earlier. Like,
Yes.
it's all
Yeah.
about finding a schedule and a rhythm. So like, say you're having trouble going to bed a little bit earlier, maybe you need to start by getting up earlier. Some of those days are going to be compromised up front
Yeah.
because you might feel a little bit more tired, but before you know it, you'll start going to bed earlier and earlier and earlier. I remember when I had first started teaching 5 a.m. classes, that was something that I had to do. Was
Yeah.
I couldn't fall asleep before 11 o'clock for
Hmm.
a couple weeks. So I had to get up at that time, and before I knew it, I was going to bed at 10 o'clock, then
Yep.
9:30. There was a
Yeah.
point where I was going to bed at 8:30.
Yeah.
So,
What happens though? You
give
got
your
to do what you
body
got to do.
time to
Yeah.
get used to it.
Um,
Um,
so that's good. That's another good factor is like a little bit here and there is going to help. The main thing too is just know that you can also, and this is the last point I'll make before we got to run. Just know that if you happen to know that you didn't sleep well and you can modify your workouts towards that,
you
do
just brought up
that.
a good point.
Yeah, we could talk about it another time, but like that's
Well,
just
real
something to,
quick, if
yeah,
you're having trouble falling asleep and you don't know why, and maybe
yeah.
you don't drink coffee super late, maybe
Hmm.
you feel like you're eating enough, et cetera, but you're working out late at night or even around like 6 o'clock, you're
Hmm.
getting a cortisol bump at that time.
Yeah,
So, say if you're working out at 6 o'clock, but you got to go to bed by 9, that might not be enough time. You might have to restructure when you work out.
yeah. So that's one of those things to take into consideration, those little schedules if you can, as well as like let's say you have a really heavy lift or workout, or you're going to do something a little bit more
I say
adventurous
do
that
it
you
at
haven't
peak
done.
cortisol times, yeah, and then
Yeah,
save, walking or any like low
yeah.
intensity cardio for later at night sort of thing.
Hmm. And that may be a better option for you. So
Mhm.
always remember that you can always play with things. Your sleep's important. If you can, try to get a little bit more. If you know you didn't sleep well, maybe not have the hardest workout of your life the next day.
No,
You know,
not going to do anything for you because how are you recovering from that?
exactly. So there's little modifications you can make with nutrition, with just little modifications over time, and then it'll compound. And the next thing you know, you'll be sleeping better, and you'll feel better, and then you'll want to sleep more.
Yeah.
So this was another thank you so much for all the insight on the nutrition aspect, Amanda, because there's so many different things that I only think of musculoskeletal wise sometimes, like the glycogen stores, but you brought up all with how even that little bit of time of decreased sleep can help. You see it in the blood sugar as well, so it all makes sense. So there's so many different factors with that sleep and nutrition help with recovery, performance, just overall training. So thank you for everyone that joined as well. We'll be back next Monday for another interesting topic. And thank you, Amanda, as always.
Thanks, Nick.